Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Natalie Sayre, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on note cards given to you when you entered and hold them up. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards during the debate, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 1.5 hours, so we might not get to all of the questions, but we will do our best. There is an independent timer who will see that all the candidates have their allotted time to answer the questions and will tell them when their time is up. As a courtesy to the other candidates, please respect the time limits. When the timer raises the stop sign, the moderator will stop the candidate. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements, a lightning round. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will also be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer, and we welcome questions throughout the event. And finally, 1-minute closing statements. If you have questions for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. Tonight's participants are Mr. Jaime Alvarez, Democrat, a Clean Elections participant, a candidate for State Senate, District Number 14. Mr. Mike Holmes. So this is the only time in our debate that we might allow some applause. Once we start the debate, please refrain. Mr. Mike Holmes, a Democrat, a Clean Elections participant, and a candidate for State Representative for District Number 14. Mr. Drew John, a Republican candidate for State Representative in District Number 14. Mr. Jason Lindstrom, Democrat, Clean Elections participant, State Representative candidate for District Number 14. And Ms. Becky Nutt, a Republican, Clean Elections participant, candidate for State Representative, District Number 14. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. And I remind you that we are recording for Clean Elections, so please refrain from any type of extra noise. Mr. Alvarez, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Thank you, and I would like to thank the Clean Elections for having this and giving us this opportunity to share why we are running and a little bit about ourselves. My name is Jaime Alvarez. I am a retired auditor. I worked for the Army for over 30 years. I traveled the world doing multi-location audits throughout. I am also a Marine Corps veteran, And so those are the values that I have, and that is the business acumen that I will bring to the office. My reason for running is my 7 grandkids in the state of Arizona, and I think that education must be funded. If we do not invest in our future, our grandchildren, we are failing our children, our grandchildren, our state, our district, our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, your opening comments.
Well, I'm Mike Holmes, and I'm a retired Army officer. I fell in love with Southeast Arizona because of my travels through Fort Huachuca, and I got here as soon as I could. I work full-time in economic development for Pima County, and what brought me into this race was education. I'm passionate about the idea that public education is the way ahead for people, for everyone. And without that, without significant funding in that, we're going to continue to fail. We've not done very well in this state. We've got one of the highest violent crime rates. We've got a large number of our population in jails. And we've got a large number of our population that doesn't graduate from high school. About 1/3 of our kids never make it to graduation. And we're 49th in funding in the nation. So funding education is fundamental not only to a safer and more productive Arizona, but also to a better economic outlook for all of us, for jobs and job creation.
Thank you. Mr. John.
Yes, thank you for putting this on for those that are here and those that will probably view it on online. My name is Drew John. I'm currently a Graham County Supervisor for my 4th term, 16 years. And I've also did 4 years on the school board. I've owned multiple business in Graham County and Cochise County. I'm a lifetime resident of LD 14. I lived 20 years in Cochise County and the rest of my life in Graham County. I won't say how many years that was, but I come to know a lot of the problems we have in Cochise and Graham County and Greenlee County, and the struggles that we face because I saw them firsthand. They weren't things that I read in the paper or listened to on the radio. We have a lot of problems: economy, jobs, education, rural roads, rural health care, emergency responders, illegal immigration, drugs, poverty, and water. Those are the things that need to be worked on in Arizona. My priorities is what's going to be the priorities from the area, and I think it's going to be important to stay in contact with the different communities to make sure
Thank
that
you.
my priorities stay right.
Mr. Lindstrom, your opening comments.
Thank you. Happy to be here. My name is Jason Lindstrom. I grew up here in Cochise County. Married a girl from Cochise County. We have 2 kids going to Buena High School. I work here at the Cochise County Attorney's Office as a criminal prosecutor. I teach at night, teach judicial process and professional ethics. I'm running because of all those empty seats that I see in front of me. I wish we could fill this place up. I wish that the people of our community could be reminded that they're participants in this government, that me and you and the people in this room and the people outside are the ones paying for this government, and we're the ones that don't seem to be being heard. So my campaign is really about reaching out to what I've been referring to as the moderate center, that group of people that just haven't been heard. And I'm hoping I can bring you and your ideas with me if you elect me to be your legislator. I'm running to be your representative. And I'm hoping that I can do the best I can, as someone who lives in this community, to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, your opening.
We need elected officials who will talk to and listen to the people, who will identify problems, and who will make the all-out effort to implement appropriate solutions to solve those problems. We must have representatives who have a heart and passion for rural Arizona and a commitment to see it stabilized and growing, and I am such a person. Growing our economy is the key to being able to pay for things such as our schools and transportation and libraries and all the other things that make our community sustainable. My experiences have given me a variety of tools that equip me for working effectively in our state legislature. Utilizing these experiences and listening to you, the residents and voters of District 14, we can address the known issues and any that may arise and reach solutions that will keep us stabilized and growing.
Thank you. To break the ice, we will start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with just one word. Mr. Holmes, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
BBC America.
Mr. John, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Mr. Lindstrom, lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Wildcat.
Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Wildcat.
Ms. Nutt, Snapchat or Instagram?
Snapchat.
Mr. Alvarez, Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora.
At this time, we will begin the portion of the debate where each candidate will answer the same question. The first question is for Mr. John. Tell us something new, something that is not in your stump speech.
In my stump speech. I'm glad I knew I had one because I always didn't think I ever had a good stump speech. Well, I think that the important thing in rural Arizona is to communicate with the people. You know, I can drive around the area and drive around the district and see people and see family and see friends and talk to them and try to put together the priorities that I can for the community. I think it's important that we have forums quarterly with each community in the area to find out what's changed, what's going on, what problems they have, what they see, and give them some updates from the legislature and what's going on. I did a stump speech, but that's a good one. I think it's just important that we communicate with one another, and that's what I want to accomplish when I get in the office.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, same question.
Well, I never come to these with any kind of script. I don't want a script. I'm trying to be as real as I can because for me, that's what we've been lacking in politics. Somebody who just comes in and speaks their mind. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. I'm going to be as honest as I can. What I want to see is a government that looks to people. I want to know that when I pay my money to the government, that someone like me is looking out for it and taking care of my best interests. I want to know that the person I'm sending up there is not there because they think that they're running for some house of leaders. It's a house of representatives. None of us up here are experts in anything other than our own fields. And the stuff we've learned about the community politically largely has come from the campaign we're running on right now. I've been learning so much as I go out and talk to people. New issues come to me every day, things I've never thought of before. And some of you out there have 30 years of expertise in all of your individual fields, and I'm not going to sit up here and profess to know more about those things than you do. In fact, when I'm faced with an issue, if you send me to the legislature, I'm going to look to you to help me figure some of these things out. I want to look to the leaders in our community and actually solve our problems. I'm not going to go up there and put my ear to the door of corporate interests. I'm not going to listen to the lobbyists. I want to listen to you. And in fact, to show how serious I am about this, I'm going to wear a body camera and I'm going to turn it on and I'm actually literally going to bring you with me. It sounds kind of crazy, and I hope I have time to explain more about, I know that I've received criticisms for saying that, but I think that if you give me a minute to talk with you afterwards, I'll have you convinced that that's the only way we can clean this mess up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt.
Well, I'm excited to go to the legislature and work with a lot of people who are just good people and who want to make positive changes in Arizona and keep us strong. I'm business focused, economy, keep our economy growing even more out here into our rural district. So I'm just excited to do that and introduce southeastern Arizona to our urban counterparts at the legislature. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, your answer.
Would you please repeat the question?
Certainly. Tell us something new, something that is not in your stump speech.
Okay, I'd like to just begin by saying that I've heard many people talk about who they've gotten endorsements from. Drew John and I sat down back on the 4th of July at an event, and as we were talking, the issue of endorsements came up. And I said, Drew, I am not filling out questionnaires for endorsements because the only endorsement I want is from the people in our district, and I don't think that I need to have people endorsing me. I think that that is part of the root of corruption, because before long, you end up having somebody that is endorsing you because they want you to vote for their piece of legislation, and it's not coming from the constituents. And when you start looking at that and you say, wait, I don't want corruption in my state house. How do you stop it? So I did not want to get involved in that. I do not discuss that as part of my platform, but that has been an underlying commitment that I have made with you, the voters, the constituents, because I believe that legislation comes from grassroots, it's bottoms up, not tops down.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, your response.
Well, as proof that we haven't colluded on this, I'm going to take the exact opposite point of view from Jaime, because just 6 hours ago, I learned that I was endorsed by the Tucson Metro Chamber of Commerce. And this is important to me because I've been working alongside of the Chamber. I'm not a member, but because of my work with Imagine Greater Tucson and getting the people's vision of Tucson inserted into the general plan update for the city of Tucson, for the Pima County, and into the Pima County Economic Development Plan, these people have seen me in action working with economic development, working to better our region, and particularly in Pima County. And at the end of that, after more than 4 years of working with them and sometimes against them, they endorsed me because of that track record. They know what I can do, and they've seen it. And that was important. And since I only learned it 6 hours ago, I can guarantee you I've not said that anywhere else except here. A lot of folks talk about economic development. A lot of folks preach about what they would do about it. But the reality is I work in it every single day. I create jobs. And I've done that. And in places like Colossal Cave Mountain Park, where 2 years ago it was failing and now they're tripling the business. When you look at the Pima County Fair, which is also one of the properties that I work with, and they've done over 350,000 visitors last year and continue to grow every single year. You look at what's happening in Tucson with the arrival of Caterpillar and with Worldview and things that are really starting to happen. And it's that experience that I want to bring in economic development to the people of this region, to the people of this district, and spread the wealth through Cochise County, Graham County, and Greenlee County as well.
Thank you. Mr. John, your 30-second response.
I have to agree with Mike on endorsements. I've been in government and business for 16 years, and I've earned some endorsements, like from the FBLA, the Arizona Medical Association, the Arizona Professional Firefighters of Arizona. Those are people I've worked with in the past with county policy and work with them to help in our counties. And so when I get an endorsement from them, it's important to me.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, you'll start our next question, and it is this. If you were to be elected, what would be the first bill you submit, and what is your most important issue to address?
It's a good question. My background is criminal justice, and I work in the criminal justice system primarily. I'm now a prosecutor. I've worked as a criminal defense attorney. So a lot of my knowledge coming in is in that arena. There's some problems that I've seen there involving mental health and how we deal with it in the criminal justice system, and how certain counties are lacking in areas like pretrial services. So those are things that I know of directly. However, I have to say that my intent is not to jump in and start writing bills. My intent is to go in and start looking at some of the things that already exist. And what I want to do is ask if we can do it better. And when another bill is presented by someone else and it's 50 pages long, what I want to do when I'm there is to take that 50-page bill and say, why is it 50 pages long? Can it be 5 pages long? Because as ordinary people, the reason we don't have the public here is because most people don't understand a lot of the stuff that's happening in their government. It's not transparent. If we don't have a transparent government, then everything we do as attempted participants is kind of pretending. We're voting on things we don't understand, like that marijuana initiative that's on the ballot. It's 20 pages long of legal jargon, and people don't really understand it. So my goal is to go in and hopefully, with my background in law, be able to look at initiatives like that, bills like that, and say, why do we have a 20-page bill when what we really want to accomplish can probably be done in 1 page? I don't want things to be so complex that ordinary people, like my family and friends, can't even understand it to a point where they can cast an intelligent vote on the topic. So for me, it's very much about helping you become participants.
Ms. Nutt, your response.
We have to be careful that we're not introducing bills just to say that we introduced a bill, because bills, after all, do become law. But we do have to watch out for bills that they're not more harmful than the intent there. But I will do all I can to support and introduce bills that will support the growth of our southeastern Arizona, our rural communities, and get our stabilize the local economies. Also, what we can do to help our education, so that we can get our kids educated, and so that they can have a choice to stay home and live prosperous and productive.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, same question.
The first legislation that I would want to introduce would have to do with restoring education funding. Without that, all the rest of the stuff does not happen. And it will force the legislature to review all of the tax credits that we currently have, because so many of them do not have a sunset on them, and they're pretty much on autopilot. And I think that we need to be able to also look at all of the tax credits that are given for sales taxes. We are losing money there. All of that money could be going to education. And when you look at education, how does it impact our economy? When you go and you see all the labor in orange suits, prisoners doing the work because the state is not funding education and many other things like HERF. And so people are being forced to go the cheapest labor that they can get, and that negatively impacts our economy. And when you are not funding higher education, you end up with the situation that we currently have. 885,000 people here in Arizona who owe $22 billion. How do they get to buy a home when they are having to focus on spending their money to pay back the loans? Our Arizona state constitution says higher education should be as free as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, same question.
Well, I actually have 3, but I'll respect the question and give you the first one only. Something that should be nonpartisan and easy and inexpensive, but we've not done in this state, is to recognize our veteran-owned small businesses. Arizona veteran-owned small businesses should be given a leg up and be given preference in state and county contracting, because that's money that would be paid from our taxes to that locally owned business that not only is veteran-owned and giving that opportunity to that veteran, but the reality is veteran-owned businesses employ other veterans. And we pay lip service to honoring our veterans and our service members, but we haven't done anything positive to actually give them that opportunity. And we're one of the very few states in this nation that hasn't done that. And oh, by the way, this wouldn't cost us a dime. That would be money that we'd be spending on some other out-of-state contractor probably, sending our tax dollars out of state instead of keeping it right here with our local business owners, veteran owners, and the employees that they would provide jobs for.
Thank you. Mr. John, your response.
Well, as a freshman legislator, it's very difficult to get any bills passed. I would hope that I would be one that would be able to stop some bad bills that might be going through. But if I was able to pass a wish list bill, it would probably be to call every department in the state and say we want 10% of your regulations reduced and we need to have it done in 6 months before session's over. And I think we would all be surprised that probably wouldn't be as hard as we think. I serve on the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission, and we went through some of the laws that fines and fees have been paid for and charged with. We had a long list of fines and fees that hadn't been used in 15 years that was on there, and that was just the criminal justice system. And so there's things that can be done to help cut reduction, and that's one of them that I would try to do. It'd be pretty hard, but I think I could pull it off.
Thank you. And Mr. Lindstrom, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Antiquated law, I'm on board with that. I think that was a good suggestion by Mr. John. Also, I wanted to make a comment about education. I know I don't have much time, but education is so important. It can be linked to so many of the problems we have in our state, and we know that Arizona is on the bottom of the heap nationally in terms of education. Education helps with social issues like racism. It helps with issues like economic development, keeping kids here, keeping them with degrees local. So many things are benefited by education that would definitely be a big focus for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What is your position about Arizona's Constitution, Article 2, Section 26, the right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired? So, Ms. Nutt, what is your position on that?
I believe that we should have the right to bear arms and carry if we so choose. And I do carry myself when the situation warrants that. And it helps. I travel a lot of back roads, and I am glad that I'm able to have that. But I think that is a fundamental right of us to be able to protect ourselves when we need. We also have an open border situation, and that has been documented that we have had situations in our nation where people could be helped if they had been able to protect themselves. So I fully support the Second Amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, your response.
I believe in the Second Amendment. I don't think there's anybody up here that doesn't believe in the Second Amendment. And I myself, I do have firearms. I grew up hunting and fishing. You will hear some of the people that'll turn around and say, I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. I don't think that you need a card to show that you stand for the Second Amendment. So that is it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
Well, I think the Supreme Court spoke volumes years ago when they recognized the fact that the right to keep and bear arms is an individual right. And that's not going to go away anytime soon. I got my first .22 rifle at the age of 4 and had a rifle range in my backyard that I grew up shooting at. And of course, as a soldier, there have been literally years of my life that I carried a weapon of some kind. And I've shot a lot of them. There's no mysteries there. But the reality is that there's an awful lot of people that don't need to be carrying around weapons in public. And we have allowed a situation in this state where anybody who wants to carry a weapon, concealed or otherwise, can, without any responsibility to show that they know what they're doing with it or understand the law. Of course, we learned from the Dallas shooting just a month or so ago that people carrying weapons openly in public create confusion when you have a shooter situation. It took the Dallas PD a lot longer to control that situation than they might otherwise have because there were people running around with weapons openly displayed. It wasn't helpful, and it certainly didn't have anything to do with helping to subdue and suppress that shooter. So I think we really need to take a look at that in this state. I'm not suggesting that we overturn any laws immediately, but I think that if you're going to carry a weapon, you need to be able to show that you know what you're doing with it, you know how to operate it, and you know the laws of self-defense that surround that.
Thank you. Mr. John, your response.
Yes, I'm definitely in support of the Second Amendment and the rest of the Constitution. also. And sorry, I am an NRA member and have an A rating with the NRA, and I'm very proud of that. And I think Mike's hit on a few things with probably talking more mental health issues that carry guns. Serving on the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission is a big discussion on that with the actual reporting of mental illness and those people having weapons. We're through the NICS program, which you've probably heard of in the justice system. The problem we're having in a lot of areas is law enforcement officers don't have access to the information that says this person should not be carrying a firearm. And the Criminal Justice Commission in the state of Arizona is trying to get that to where it's a national database so that if they pull up behind somebody and somebody's in the car, they will know before they approach the car that person's not supposed to have a weapon. So there's issues that need to be taken care of, but the Second Amendment is not to be messed with in my book.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, your response.
Thank you. I grew up out in Bisbee Junction, right on the border. I grew up with my brother and my friends hiking out in the desert. I did carry a weapon. My parents let me. I knew how to use it. They trained me how to use it. I carried a double-barrel 20-gauge shotgun at 13 years old. That might shock some of you, but I mean, the world's a little different than it was then. I'm not that old, but you know, when you're living out in the sticks and there's not a lot of people around, you know, that's one of the activities that me and my brother would do. We'd set up cans on a fence and we'd shoot them. Okay. This country was founded on the idea that we're all adults and we're all capable of self-governing. Okay. So it's very important that whatever we decide to do, whenever we regulate anything, that we first keep in mind that we have to presume that the people you're sitting next to and the people up here and the people outside are capable of making adult decisions, okay, about the aspects of their life. Now, with that said, we also drive a car, and I know that in order for me to drive my car and get that machine that weighs several thousand pounds and hurl it down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, that someone decides that I'm qualified to do that. And it's possible to stop me from driving the car if I'm deemed not to be a safe driver. So I think that when we look at guns and how to regulate guns, it's possible that we can come up with some rational regulations and ways to control it, but at the same time maintain our autonomy as rational, you know, self-governing adults. And we don't need some nobleman or lord to tell us what we can and can't do, and we're capable of making those decisions for ourselves. Mr. John did bring up the idea of mental health reform as well. Obviously, we don't want someone with mental health issues to be carrying a gun with them. I think everyone would agree on that. So the question really is, how do we get there? And we need to be rational.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, your 30-second response.
So I am an NRA member. We do have to have background checks to have a weapon. It has been documented that people with weapons have been able to defuse situations that could have gone otherwise. And criminals that see someone with weapons, they are less likely to do an illegal act. And we are in a different situation at the border than we were 10, 20 years ago.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, we'll start the last round of this phase. The audience is curious about your position on the current penal system and if you would change it, including private prisons, and how could we achieve it if you are supporting changing it?
I think that private prisons are a travesty. You know, I've heard some of people up here comment about it in the past, and the comments pretty much align with what I think, that when you have a private prison, the focus is going to be on profit. And when it's on profit, you're not going to get the prisoners getting the training that they need to try and come back into society. So I don't like private prisons, and I think the fact that the federal government is already doing away with that says a lot about our country. I think the fact that we are spending between $20,000 and $30,000 a year for a prisoner in a private prison, when we could be spending more money for education for our children, I think that's why I say it is a travesty, and I do not agree with that.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
I think private prisons and policing for profit in general is a moral abomination. When you put a person in prison and you're paying a corporation money to keep them there with a profit incentive, what they don't have the incentive for is to rehabilitate that person. In fact, it's in their best interest to make sure that that person comes back into the prison system once they're released. And the proof of that is that we have one of the highest recidivism rates here in Arizona of any state in the nation. It's ridiculous to think that we're going to pay money to a corporation and send that money out of state to their investors and their owners and think that they're going to have any interest in making sure that those prisoners learn their lessons and do something different when they're released. Because they're not, and they don't. And the fact that our state has resisted up to this point any sort of review or audit of the performance of those private prisons brings a lot of questions to mind. So, no, we shouldn't have private prisons. We should shift that back into the government sector as it should have been all along. And we need to work at providing those prisoners something of value when they get out. A job training, so that they don't just fall back into the same routine and create more of a problem for the rest of us.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom.
I wrote this down because I wanted to remember it. When we make our public interests private, we lose control of them. To me, that's very important. We, as a society, don't want to attach a private or a profit motive to our public resources. I think the idea of private prisons was a good experiment, but I think that if you look at what has happened, they've failed. Because when you put profit interest on private interests, it creates corruption. And I know the argument is, well, the government still has the oversight power of these private entities. But we also know that private corporations that have lots of money can buy our politicians, and our government then becomes for sale. And I don't think that's a good idea. I work in the criminal justice system, and the last thing I want is for justice to be for sale. We have to do everything within our power to make sure that the things that we value as a public are not sold to the highest bidder or given away because we can save a few bucks. Okay, justice is worth its cost. Okay, so is education, and these things that we've deemed important, we can't sell them to private interests. We have to keep them. We have to maintain control over them. We have to make sure that these institutions that are running on our money, because we're paying money for these things. Okay, when we pay our taxes to the state government, those taxes are used to run these operations. The last thing we want is for that money to be looked at as a way for a corporation to make money from it. That's like setting up a lemonade stand and selling ourselves lemonade, and then being happy because the lemonade stand made money. It doesn't make any sense when you really sit down and evaluate it. And I've worked with people that have been in the private system and the public system, and from the conversations I've had with them, there's lots of reasons why we don't want our prisons private.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, your response.
Prisons are not a retail business. They're not out for profit as in this context. They're similar to the contractors on post. So we need to look at them in that light. They've been operating with the Arizona Department of Corrections since 1994, has had private prisons. And we started out with about 7,000 inmates. We're now up to about 42,000. So we have an expansion problem, and the state cannot afford to build as many buildings or prisons as they need. So the advantage, and we spend about 10% of our budget goes towards the Arizona Department of Corrections. So it helps the state to have these facilities built by the private entities, and then in 20 years, they actually become state property. So there's a lot to this. It's not just a matter of making money because it's private. It's a matter of contracting with the state, and not in a retail sense, but in a service.
Thank you. Mr. John, I believe I overlooked you.
That's all right.
So
Happens once in
please,
a while.
please answer the question.
Yes, you know, to turn around and say that the feds aren't going to use private prisons really don't impress me a lot, because I'm not sure that the feds really have that good a record to go by, for one. I agree to a degree that if you're looking at just a profit center, then that's the wrong way to look at it. But it is a service. The private prisons are. There's probably a place for them. Government doesn't always do things real efficiently, and sometimes because you don't have the capabilities to do it efficiently, sometimes you have to sub out some of the duties. And most likely you'll probably get a better job done by a subcontractor than you would by some of your government people, because government's tight, there's not a lot of money there, the employees don't get paid a lot, so we do a lot of situations in Graham County to where we have to sub out our roads because we don't have the manpower to be able to do it. I don't think that the private prison system is going to work or grow. I don't think the state's going to continue to do that program. There's one that works very successful up in Navajo County area, that the sheriff up there that I talk to a lot, he likes the system up there. He likes the way it works, and he's saving money for his county tax people. But I would just say, I wouldn't put my judgment on the feds getting rid of it. So.
Thank you. And Mr. Alvarez, your 30-second response.
2 words: inherently governmental. That is what a prison is. That is an inherently governmental function, because that is one of the things that we ask our legislators to take care of, and we ask our penal system to do. Simple as that. And you won't have contributions going to politicians in the amount of $10,500 to help them become governors.
Thank you. At this time, we will transition to the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Remember, you still may submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. The first question is this for Ms. Nutt. At the July 19th debate, you said that you support Trump because he understands business. What specifically in Trump's business history and philosophy do you approve of and or admire?
Well, the fact that he has a multi-billion-dollar business that he has built up, and maybe he's failed, but he has come back and built up his business. He understands the international market, and he understands how to work internationally. So I believe that he will be perfect for our economy.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez. Sorry, Mr. Lindstrom, we'll go to you. So the audience is curious about your position on wearing a camera and the legality of actually wearing that camera during the legislative sessions.
Okay, I only have a minute, so I'll do my best. I'm going to wear it wherever I can, okay? And I don't know all the ins and outs of where I can or where I can't wear it. But if someone tells me I can't wear it, they're going to be on camera telling me I can't wear it. So you'll all see them tell me I can't wear it, and then we can talk about whether or not it's appropriate for me to wear it in there or not, and as a public, we can decide whether or not we need to change that. That's the crux of the idea for the camera, is that we can decide how this government is supposed to work, at least how we want it to work. And if they're telling me I can't keep the camera on, we need a good reason. And if there's a good reason, then I'm more than happy to turn it off. But I'm also going to talk to you about that reason and decide whether or not maybe that's something that needs to change, because I'm your representative. Is there something they're telling me that they don't want you to hear? I hope not. And I hope that there's nothing that I'm saying that I wouldn't want you to hear as well. I think we all need to be participants in this system as it was designed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John, the audience is expressing some concern over the SunZia power line. What is your position on the SunZia power line?
Right, if you go back to the last clean elections, I answered the SunZia power line, but I'll answer it again. If we want to have clean energy delivered to where it can be used, we have to have power lines. The SunZia power line is a power line that is being paid by private dollars that is going to be going through our area. There has been hearings and that placed on where it should go. I'm not sure I agree or disagree with where it should go, but if we need to have a power line that comes through to deliver the power where we need to have it. If you didn't go to the hearing, you didn't speak at the hearing about it, that's the only way that they'll know about that you didn't like where it was. But you have to deliver that power somehow, and it's not going to be your tax dollars that's paying for it.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, the audience is curious about your support on the Facebook page that you support Arizona Republic's endorsement of Hillary Clinton, and Ms. Clinton is pushing for increased taxes. So what can the voters expect from you in the area of taxes?
Well, to begin with, my remark on that page was about the fact that for the first time in its history, the Arizona Republic is endorsing a Democratic candidate. I didn't make any comment about the quality or lack of quality of that candidate. It's simply a change in times. And I think a lot of voters out there are facing, a lot of Republican voters and independent voters are facing that issue of what are they going to do? Because there's a lot of questions about their candidate, and there should be. So, as far as taxes go and the relationship to that, the reality is that in Arizona, it's virtually impossible to raise taxes. Whether I wanted to or not, it would take a 2/3 majority in both houses and the governor's signature for any taxes to be raised. So it's just not a reality. It's not going to happen. Functionally, not going to work. We've got to work within the tax system that we have. We may be able to make some adjustments with things that are sunsetting out, perhaps. But the reality is that we need to work on building our economy to create that.
Mr. Alvarez, what is your position regarding the current federal policies regarding illegal immigration and the border? Are they adequate, and if so, why?
Well, the first thing that we've got to remember is that when it comes time for illegal immigration, that is a federal issue. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anybody up here that is for illegal immigration. I'm not. I don't know if anybody out in the audience that is. But it's an issue that has now been put on our table, and we need to take a look at it by going to our legislators who are responsible for that. We're talking about Martha McSally, Senator McCain, and Senator Flake. If the ICE people are not doing what they're supposed to do, the Border Patrol is not getting done what they need to, then they need to start addressing it. But the last thing we need is to have state legislators trying to enact laws that end up costing us more money as a result of them getting out of their lane and trying to put themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, Ms. Nutt. How will you fix the inequalities between public and private education in the state?
The inequalities between private and public education
For
in our
funding.
state?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to have our kids educated. They are our future leaders. So whether one person considers something an inequality or another not a quality is just something that we have to work on as a community. We like to blanket our districts over and put everything under one blanket, and we have to look at our districts individually. What is working in this district, what's not working, what district is running efficiently, what's not, and work at those and what works in that community for their education. I don't know that we have our education system in Arizona, I hear a lot of negative about it, but we have a lot of really good schools. We have schools that are doing wonderful things right here in this district. I don't think that we have a failing school in this district.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom. One moment, let me get organized here. Do you support increasing the state minimum wage? Why or why not?
I didn't used to support it. In fact, I was adamantly against it until I had a conversation with a good friend of mine who is very knowledgeable in economics, and it occurred to me that we are in an environment now where true market forces don't exist anymore. That happened in the 70s, back when big box stores like Walmart, Kmart, places like that started basically taking over the business market. What we have now is companies like Walmart setting the price of labor. And the mom and pop shops that used to exist on our street corners are gone. There's no arm's length transaction between us and the person that's actually hiring us anymore. That person that's doing the interview in Walmart, they have no real power. Walmart, from, I forget where they're stationed out of, but someone there is deciding what their wages are going to be. And as a result, I think it's important for us to make sure that the Walmarts of the world are not taking advantage of unskilled labor. And I think we need to look at that very critically with the understanding that the market forces are gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John, referring back to the July 19th debate, you said that you have in-depth business experience. How much business experience do you have, and what has been the outcome of your business ventures?
Well, I've had quite a few different businesses, actually. Some have gone well, some have not gone as well. I've sold some of the businesses. The last business I sold in last July. A lot of times what it was is I had family members that had come to me. I had a service station that was with my sister. She wanted to stick around Safford and live there after a divorce, so we opened up a service station. We bought a service station there. That's one of them. Another one, we opened a motorcycle dealership in Safford to keep my son in the valley there, was the main reason. I didn't need another thing to have to do as I was a supervisor. And so we opened a motorcycle dealership and did okay for a while till the banks went bad, and then when the bank shabogle happened, we lost all the flooring along with about 75 other motorcycle dealerships that went down. Probably the biggest thing I learned in business is cutting expenses isn't always the answer to a lot of things. Sometimes you got to start creating efficiencies and build sales, and that's one thing that we have to do in the state of Arizona, is quit cutting everything and start building sales. Is that stop? Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Is.
Thank you for keeping me honest, Mr. John.
I was watching you.
Mr. Holmes. According to the audience member, currently about 49% of our state budget goes to education, 42% K through 12, in addition to federal funding and property taxes. How much more of the remaining 51% of the state budget would you like to give to education?
Two things. One, it's not quite 49%. It's a little bit less than that. We're limited to 49% because of Prop 123. We need to provide as much education as we can, and right now that is 49% because we passed a proposition, 123, that limited it to that. So it's not quite as simple as just saying we're going to give more, because we can't. But what we can do is focus on building our economy, and that's something I've got a little bit of experience in doing. And building that tax base and providing better education for the kids as best we can by prioritizing what we're going to spend that money on and not trying to mandate performance from the state level. You know, we've got an awful lot of people, we do that quite a bit right now. We tell the schools how they're going to teach, what they're going to teach, what they're going to test, when they're going to test. The reality is we've got PhDs and master's degrees and very well-trained and qualified people out there running those schools that aren't being allowed to do their jobs. And we need to free them up to do that and stop trying to control from the top, because that doesn't work. So, short answer, we can't increase taxes. We can't increase spending to past 49%.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what evidence do you have to prove that spending more on education equals more or better educated students?
Well, when you start looking at what's going on, we've got overcrowded rooms. We've got students, recently we had some tests that were, the results of the test came out. And when you started looking at it, I believe that it was Palominas Elementary School District that was the best in Cochise County, or among the best, at 55% as far as ELA is concerned. The others were substantially lower. When you start looking at some of the teachers that are in those classrooms and you find out that they're really not teachers, they're substitute teachers, when you've got overcrowded classrooms, the learning environment is not there, those are kind of obvious things right there. So I think that those are the reasons that we need to look at it and say, yes, we do need more.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Nutt. How does Arizona move from being almost last in the nation in education to at least, say, number 20?
Who's that to?
It is to you.
Oh, sorry. Almost last, well, that's different. It depends on which graph you're looking at, because I've seen graphs where we're right in the middle. A lot of graphs, people tout that we're at the bottom, and I don't believe that's correct information. But I believe that I want to see our schools to be in the top 10% of the nation. I want our Arizona and our district to be proud of our schools. And again, we can't just blanket and say that that's happening. And teachers are not leaving schools just for the money. Yes, that's a part of it, absolutely. But there's also, I talk to a lot of teachers, a lot of educators, and they are also frustrated because they don't have control of their classroom. They have to do a lot of paperwork.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, do you support the transfer of control of federal lands to the state? And please expound on that question.
It's a tough question. I'm going to be honest, I don't know the ins and outs of and the nuances of that question. I know that's not what you want to hear. I only have 1 minute. If I am faced as your legislator with that question, then I'm going to have to reach out to people that know a lot more about this issue than me. I generally favor keeping control locally, if possible, but this is a different kind of issue. There are good reasons why we should have the federal government in charge of some national parks, and I'd have to listen to both sides of that debate and then talk with people in the community that know more about it than me. And I'm sorry, it's probably not a satisfying answer, but I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to claim to have all the answers up here. So I hope you recognize that, we're members of your community. We have our certain areas of expertise. I'm not going to sit up here and try to pretend I know something about something that I don't know about. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John, as a Trump supporter, does Trump speak for you when he speaks critically about immigrants, women, people of color, minorities? Why or why not?
When he speaks negatively about them? Of course
or critically?
not. Who would say yes to something like that? No way he does. I think that I'm a supporter of Trump, but he needs to go to some finishing schools. He probably owns them to go to them, but he needs to do something. But I think hey, we've been trying the other way for quite a while, and it's not working. If Trump gets in there and he messes up too bad, we'll try to figure out a way to get him out of there. But I sure don't want to go the direction we're going, and if we go Hillary, that's definitely the direction. We'll be going the same direction, and that doesn't work for me, or it shouldn't for anybody here.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, what is your stand on Prop 205, the legalization of marijuana in Arizona?
Well, the voters are going to get to choose that. I've got the same vote as everybody in this room, 1 for or against. But I can say this. I've never tried marijuana in my life. I don't think I will. But it's been around me for as long as I can remember. I get off the streetcar in downtown Tucson at Ronstadt Transit Center, and you can smell it. It's everywhere. It's been around us. It's been with us. And somehow we've muddled through. Cops don't arrest people for it in most places.
Thank you.
Didn't get to answer.
Mr. Alvarez, what is your position on state versus local control? For instance, in Bisbee, the plastic bag ban versus the state enacting legislation or proposing legislation to take away that control?
I think that's overreach. I think that that is wrong. It's not only Bisbee's ban on plastic bags, it's also Flagstaff's attempt to increase minimum wage. It's also Tucson, Phoenix, Tempe, who tried to stop the puppy mills. And the state said, no, you can't. That's wrong. Local control belongs to local people. And this overreach by the state has got to stop.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, the San Pedro River is a very important source of tourist revenue for our county. How will you protect its flow?
Pray for rain. So I'm not a water expert. I have my information from the Arizona Department of Water Resources. I have read their studies of our district in Cochise County, and they are the experts, and there were 3 hydrologists, one from their organization and 2 from that supported the real estate community, but they all agreed that there in Cochise County there's not a water issue except in the Wilcox Basin. So until they tell us something different, that's all I can go by.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom. What is your position on the current laws for sentencing for things like possession of child pornography versus murder? In some cases, the possession of pictures is worse than murder. So how do you think that the reforms of the Arizona current sentencing laws need to change, or are they adequate?
Generally speaking, I'm against minimum mandatory sentencing. As a prosecutor myself, I know that the minimum mandatory sentencing provisions have given a lot of power to people holding my position. It gives us a lot of leverage. It allows us to plea out a large majority of the cases we deal with. However, I think that we have 3 branches in our government for a very important reason. We're supposed to divide up this power so that no one branch gets too much. And I am in favor of empowering our judges to have more discretion over things like sentencing. I think it's an important part of our criminal justice system. And we've had minimum mandatories now for quite some time, and it's a real tough to answer this question in 1 minute. I saw the sign go up a minute ago. Catch me afterwards, and I'll go into more detail, and hopefully we can go dive below the surface. But I want to empower our judiciary to be able to use their good judgment, we put them there for that reason, to be able to make those decisions.
Thank you. Mr. John, where do you stand on charter schools in Arizona?
Charter schools in Arizona. Well, I do believe that parents should have a choice where their kids go. The only problem that I have with charter schools, well, one of the problems I have with it, is in rural Arizona, we don't have a lot of choices. Yeah, we don't have charter schools in our areas, and a lot of them, Elfrida, places like that, Pierce. So what worries me is that a charter school moves into the area, opens up, takes all the students from the public school shuts down, the charter school says, we're not making it work here, and they pull out. I call it the Walmart effect. and they pull out, and then all of a sudden you have a public school that has nothing there and possibly not even a building anymore, and you have students that are just stranded there. That's the part that worries me about it, and I've told them if they can satisfy me with an answer that will satisfy me from the people in rural Arizona, then I might be a little more supportive of things like that. But charter schools has its place. I just think you have to be super, super careful in rural
Thank
Arizona
you.
with them.
Mr. Holmes, what is your position about using our taxes to pay for private, for-profit, and/or religious K through 12 schools?
No. To expand on that a little bit, our Constitution. Would you? You can't stop me. Our Constitution started out from the very beginning saying we need a separation of church and state. I'm not against church. I'm not against private schools. In fact, I'm a product of private schools. But the reality is that when you use public tax dollars to pay for a private education, you lose control over what the product is going to be. You don't know what they're going to be taught. There are no standards for what they're going to achieve. And frankly, it goes into a big black hole. So it's against the Constitution. It's a negative effect on the actual kids themselves because some of them are great, some of them aren't. And the other part of that is you're taking money out of the general fund that should be used for public education to bring everybody up to the same level. If you want to go to public or private school, great. Find somebody to pay for it, get a scholarship. That happens. Go do that, but don't
Thank
expect
you.
me to pay for that.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, your question. What is your position on the Clean Water Restoration Act?
The Clean Water Restoration Act,
Yes.
I am not familiar with that one, so I will not even attempt to give you an answer. I've tried to get up to speed on so many of the water issues that that's one that I have not, other than I have seen what ADEQ can and cannot do based on the funding that they have received in discussions with their personnel, and they tell me about all of the volunteers that they need, because without those volunteers, they can't really be checking the quality of the water.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, what is happening regarding the new subdivision that is planned in the planning stages in Benson?
What is my opinion on that?
Mhm.
I support it. I think it's good because it will bring people to the area. And it's people are looking at the Benson area. They want housing, and they'll put money into the local economy, and I think it's a win-win. The gentleman who is building this development is the one that built this town of Maricopa, or the city of Maricopa. So he's very respected. I even checked him out when I first heard about what was going on, and he's well respected, and I think that he will follow through and do a good job.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, how do you know which lobbyist gives good advice or bad advice?
Well, I think it's a judgment call. I think that lobbyists have their place in our system. They obviously are advocating for the interests of some group. A lot of these lobbyists are probably very intelligent, knowledgeable people. While I'm against government corruption and I'm against the idea that corporations have more of a voice in our government than we do, I don't think it's a good idea to boot them out the door just because they call themselves a lobbyist. I think that our legislators need to be rational people. We need to bring your voice in, hear all the ideas. Some of these good ideas are going to come from lobbyists. So it's just a matter of having good judgment and putting people in that office that are going to be able to say, there's something fishy here. This 100-page bill that they've just handed me that they want me to put through has a lot of hidden, stuff on the back pages here that's going to benefit some corporation. So it's just a matter of judgment and putting someone in there that's going to be able to see things like that.
Thank you. Mr. John, will you become a member of the American Legislative Exchange Council, if elected, as previous Republican legislators have? Why or why not? Alec, A-L-E-C.
Oh, Alec. Well, read that question again so I can make sure I got that clear, what you're asking.
If elected, will you become a member of ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, as a previous Republican legislators did? Gowan and Stevens are referenced here. If so, why or why not?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I've heard of ALEC. I don't know a lot about it at this point. I know that there's something coming up in November, December, I think it is, in Washington. But I don't know enough about it to say I will. I don't normally just do something because somebody else did it. And so I'll have to wait and see and understand exactly what that is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Holmes. According to DES, most recent numbers, roughly 25,000 people in LD14 live in poverty. This is a statistic from an audience member. What should the role of government be in helping lift these families out of poverty?
You have to do a long-term approach and you have to do an immediate approach. You know, the immediate approach is to get them to a point where they can sustain themselves, provide them the assistance they need and the training they need and the supervision they need to be able to get to a point where they're making money instead of drawing money from the public coffers. But the bigger answer is to create the conditions that allow jobs to grow. And to that end, we've had an awful lot of talk about an industrial port of entry at Douglas, similar to the one created in Nogales. Government needs to allow that to happen, needs to promote that, needs to work with the federal and the Mexican side as well to allow that to happen and create the conditions where private enterprise can come in and do the building and create the jobs necessary to make that work.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Alvarez. Prop 123 was a first step. What plans do you have for step 2 in education?
As I said earlier, I plan on pushing the envelope so that the legislature has to address the issue of funding. And as Mr. Holmes said, it does take quite a bit to get funding into our schools. But you don't start the discussion without pushing their buttons. And so, therefore, I will continue to say that restoring funding for education to make up for the $1.5 billion that was not addressed by Proposition 123, that's the money that many of the school districts are now going out and getting school bonds for, just like in Sierra Vista. They're out trying to get $29 million. A lot of our 35 school districts in our legislative district do not have the tax base to be able to do that. So I will continue to push for the restoration of funding.
Thank you. Ms. Nutt, if elected, how will you represent all constituents in your district, not just your Republicans, but also the Democrats and other parties?
I think communication is huge. I've talked to a lot of people who are a little bit frustrated because there hasn't been a lot of communication. So that would be my key, is to, I've tried to think of different ways of doing that, but emailing, obviously, have a huge email list, but get out and have forums. As a person myself that has tried to get information from elected officials, it is frustrating because they are hard to get to and they don't come out. So I would be forums and email and available by phone and do everything I can to answer questions and get information out to you. So it's not just a matter of meeting with you, but it's getting information to you and getting your feedback on that. So,
thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, what is your understanding of the impacts on bilingual children or children who do not speak English proficiently on our school system? And is there anything to do about this?
Well, I went through school in Bisbee, Arizona, in the Bisbee school system, right on the border. I I know everyone here knows where that is, and a lot of the same issues that exist there exist here. I know that a Spanish-speaking student is disadvantaged. I lived in China for a short period of time with my kids. At the time, my son was 5 and my daughter was 8. They didn't speak Chinese, but we went and put them in a Chinese school district, and it was difficult. But amazingly enough, they did, learn, and they struggled, and they didn't have anybody helping them with the language, but they're kids, and kids are like sponges, and anything we can do to help someone who's bilingual, I think we should try. But we are a country that speaks English. Our school systems use English, and I think that it's up, to our community to do everything we can to empower people, give them the tools that we are able to give them, but I don't think we can teach in 2 languages. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John, according to an audience member, 1 in 4 kids in Arizona are considered food insecure. What are your plans to alleviate hunger in our state and district?
Well, poverty's kind of snuck up on us here in Arizona. It's probably the #1 issue that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And as far as solving the problem, well, there's a lot of different things. One, we have to get the kids educated and to be able to give them the nourishment to be able to learn. The others, we have to grow the economy so that their parents will have a job and be able to buy them food. As far as, gosh, we've done a lot through the schools to make sure that they have Saturday lunches and Saturday breakfasts and daily lunches and daily breakfasts. I think we just need to grow the economy by making sure that their parents have the training. If it's just a single parent, then we need to assist them somehow through some assistance programs and babysitting programs or daycare or childcare programs so that they can go out and start earning a living too and be able to feed their family.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, regardless of how a campaign is funded, clean elections versus dark money is the reference used here. How do you assure that all the public needs are met by the representatives?
This is similar to the question that was asked to Mrs. Nutt. You've got to go out and listen to the people. You got to get out in the district. I don't think there's a single settlement in LD14 I haven't been to yet, and some of them multiple times. And you got to talk to the people, and you're not asking whether they're Republicans or Democrats. You're finding out what their real needs are. And to give you an example, before I decided to run, I wrote down a list of issues that I felt passionate about, that I knew that I could champion. And then I went out to the district, and I asked the people what they were passionate about. And it wasn't until I had alignment on a significant number of those, where my passions were shared by the people, that I even decided to run. Because I knew that I couldn't fake it. I knew that I wanted to represent the people with what they wanted to see changed, what problems they wanted to see addressed, and not just what I wanted to do. And it really is all about communication and talking with them, not at them.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, what is your perspective on health care for all and offering more choices for health care?
I really think that we need to be helping them and not suing the state over things such as expansion of Medicaid. I think that health care is one of the big issues in our district that has been brought to me by the constituents throughout. Doesn't matter where I've gone, they bring it up. They need it, they want it. Kids care. Why would people vote against kids care to help children? If you say that you're for family, then don't you think you should be helping those in the most need? As somebody said earlier, our state, the poverty rate is about 20%, about 1 in 5. Look around and then think about that and say, 1 in 5 of us here may have been in poverty. I know we're not. I know those of you that are here. But that's just an example of what you can do so that you can see what it's like here in our state and in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will move to closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Ms. Nutt.
Growing our economy is key. We have to offer our state, and although I'm not advocating growing by hundreds of thousands of people, I do expect to see us stabilized with a solid growth that allows for the cycle of life to keep cycling in our rural communities. Bottom line, we are losing our rural way of life, and if we want to preserve that, now is the time to step up. You have two rural people who have made it through the primary, myself and Drew John, and we are the Republican team, and I ask that you will vote Becky Nutt and Drew John to the Arizona House of Representatives so that we can get to work growing our economy. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Lindstrom, your closing comments.
Thank you. We've been asked a lot of tough questions, and we haven't had that much time to answer them. In fact, most of these questions, we're just dancing on the surface of them. There's so much more that can be said. What I'd like to leave you with is the idea that we're in a room full of people, and you're very important. You're the participants. You are the people that need to go out and talk to your community. Look at all the empty chairs that are next to you. Those people that aren't here, they have a belief that their voice doesn't matter. And maybe they have good reasons for believing that, because in the past we've elected people that have not taken their voice seriously. It's very important for us to go out into our community and to remind each other that this is our government. It's ours. Ours. It operates for us to take care of our interests. It uses our money to do that. We have a voice. We can change things if we choose. We can decide to do something differently if we choose. But it's a matter of getting out there and letting everybody remember that we can do it.
Thank you. Mr. John, your closing statement.
Yes, you know, I've been a county supervisor for 16 years, and I've been serving in my community for over 20 years. And it gets in your blood that you want to be able to serve your areas and your community. And I have an opportunity to hopefully be able to serve and have the honor of serving family and friends that I was raised with in Cochise and in Graham County, and I'm excited about that. I think that rural experience is important. You really need to know what you're fighting for, and when you've been raised and grew up in rural Arizona, you know what you're fighting for. You know what you're working towards. You know what you're trying to help, and the people that you're trying to help be successful. And I think that's important, and that's part of the character. And I do agree with Becky that the Republican team is Becky and I, both from rural Arizona, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, your closing statement.
There's no way that you can look out across this state and this district and say that we're doing well. We're not. We're failing in so many areas, whether it's education, the economy. Cochise County is actually shrinking. The population is leaving us. Our children are performing at the 47 mark out of 50 in student achievement. We're just not doing well. And I tell you that I think the reason we're not doing well is because for so many years, we've voted strictly along party lines. We've gone and looked at the D or the R beside the name, checked off that block, and not paid any attention to the person that actually sits next to that letter. We need to stop doing that, or we're going to continue to fail. You know, we're at a crossroads this year, nationally as well as statewide. A lot of people are going to be scratching their heads and wondering what to do with the vote at the top of the ticket. And a lot of them, I think, are going to cross those lines because they're dissatisfied with what they see at the top of the ticket. And I think you need to continue that trend and cross those lines. Everybody needs to come out and vote and pay attention to who you're voting for.
Thank you.
Not the party.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, your closing comments.
You know, Arizona is just now, this year, coming out of the Great Recession. It is one of the last states to do that. There's a reason for that. When you're not focused on the issues of the people and you're focused more on ideology, you're going to get what we have. We need to make changes, people. If we don't change the people that are in office, as Mike said, it's going to continue. I like to talk about education, and so I'm going to run through this very quickly because it is something that I think is very important for people to remember, and this was written by somebody else. Today, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local governments. Compulsory school attendance laws and the great expenditures for education both demonstrate our recognition of the importance of education to our democratic society. It is required in the performance of our most basic public responsibilities. And I
Thank you.
can't go any further, but that came from
Thank
the
you.
Board,
Thank you.
Board of Education
Thank
against.
you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum. And to our audience members, we thank you all who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit the azcleanelections.gov website, where you can find information on upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to this video, the video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight. You're welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates. Have a good night.